Hi friend, today I visited the local nursery and apart from these beautiful indoor plants that caught my eye, I spotted rows of the popular snake plant. I feel that'll be an interesting yet easy subject to paint. So if you want to paint along, grab your watercolors too and let's get started. I'm using some convenience colors in green straight from the tube. I have on my palette a warm sap green, a cooler more bluish hooker's green, and a balanced fresh leaf green. I've kept a dark neutral like sepia handy too. In my other palette, I retained the warm colors from a previous project, and these will be very useful when I paint the earthen pot. I begin by first lightly sketching out an outline for the main leaves and the pot. You can use any reference from real still life or from references in the net. I begin by outlining the leaves with yellow. I use some of the azo yellow and cadmium yellow already on my palette. I mix the yellows with enough water to form a mid-value and a tea-like consistency. The brush I'm using for this entire artwork is a round No. 1 Raphael Precision Brush by Sennelier. This is not a sponsored video. I am, however, listing all materials used in this artwork in the description below. Do check them out. Next, for the leaves, I mix mid and cool greens, which is leaf green and hooker's green, to form a light value wash. For leaves next to each other, I use the warmer green, which is sap green, to distinguish the leaves from one another. I try and keep the value consistent, however, which is the dilution with water, since I'll be adding layers later on all the leaves. Notice how the darkest leaf is on the left side, and I use just sap green for this. This also helps establish the light source on the right side early on in the composition. After this, I start to add a second layer, a process called glazing, over the initial layer while it's almost dry. The characteristic feature that earns this plant its name is the snake-like striations on the leaves. For this, I use the darker value of the greens mixed with sepia and drop in the little markings with the tip of my brush, while the paint is still damp. In some places, if the paper is too wet, the minute lines mix very quickly, which we don't want. I also add a second layer of yellow to the leaf edges to brighten them up and add some details with the muddy greens to the tip of the leaves. I now leave this part here to completely dry and start with the pot. I want to paint a beautiful earthen clay pot and not a plastic pot that you find often in nurseries. So my choice of colors are burnt sienna and some reds on my palette. I do a light value wash, mixing these with some yellow to further highlight the source of light on the right side. The fun part is not to cover the whole pot in just one color, for example a burnt umber or a burnt sienna. It is also to leave some white spaces intact for natural highlights. I use some of the dark sepia to form the shadows on the left side and at the top fringe of the pot. Just use a lighter value of the same when going across to the right. I start to add more layers with burnt sienna, lifting off in places where I feel there is too much of color or water. This is a fun wet on wet stage of the artwork. For the top fringe of the pot, I follow a similar approach. Remember, when in doubt on what color to put down, go with the lightest value, that is, the highest dilution with water, so that even if the color is not exactly what you wanted, you can hope to remedy it with a layer on top once it dries. Else, if you put in a very dark color in the first wash itself, example for the soil, you have very little wiggle room to correct or even create interesting patterns later on. If you're keen to know how to create natural looking shadows using complementary colors, click on the link above to access my video on color theory and making your own color wheels. I'm sure you'll find it useful. As the last step, I come back to add a final glaze to some of the darker leaves since they look monotonous now, with the pot having been painted. For the markings on the leaves, I mix a cool red, a crimson, and sap green to get a really dark tone. This is the final layer of glazing for the striations. I finished up with some detailing, adding a little bit of sepia here and there to strengthen the shadows or soil. And a glaze or warm yellow on some parts of the earthen pot helps it look cohesive. If you're wondering what's under here, well, it's a revised version of the ixoras in a similar earthen pot. If you haven't checked out the video on how to paint ixoras easily using watercolors, check out the video in the link above and also in the description below. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you found this video useful, do give it a thumbs up and share with your friends. Thanks for watching and see you in my next video.